It was just always a favourite subject, but it's just a hobby really, you know. And then when I left school I just worked in an office, did shorthand typing work and things like that, got married, had children, and then when they were growing up I started going to night school. When we lived in the Isle of Man I started going to Kensington Road first, and then when the college moved to Williston I started going to classes in a more serious way, and I was going out most nights to different classes. Monday was a full day painting for pleasure class with Norman Sale, and then in the evening he had a life drawing class which I also went to. So it was a case of being at college all day, going home, cooking a meal for the family, and then dashing back for an evening class at night for life drawing. And all these subjects were new to me, not having studied at college or anything before this, because I was about, 35 at this stage when all this started happening. So then Tuesday night I joined the Art Society, and they had a meeting on Tuesday nights. Wednesday was free. Thursday night was graphics, again with Norman Sale. And then Friday night there was a gentleman called George Crellin, who was a well-known portrait painter at that time and very highly thought of. And it was because of Norman Sale that George Crellin got the job as a portrait artist teacher at the college on Friday evenings. And so I went to that as well. So it was a real broad spectrum really, painting for pleasure, life drawing, graphics and portraiture, you know, and I loved them all. You know, it was just wonderful. And I went for a long, long time. It was a regular thing really. That day you have to be at the college and enroll, you know. It was, oh gosh, I used to worry a bit and think, gosh, is she coming again, you know. Oh dear. But anyway, they were all very nice. Met some lovely people there. A lot of people who did go regularly, year after year, you know, especially to Norman's class, because he was so popular, you know, and such a wonderful teacher, really good. So that's how it started, really. You know.
I know Norman's been a very big influence on you while you've been when you were learning originally. What would you say was the main things that he taught you that you've carried on with?
Well, I think the main thing was to not rely on photographs in magazines and copying things from other people, not other people's art, but pictures that other people had photographed. He encouraged us to go out and not look at a conventional view of somewhere, to sort of try and personalise the thing you were painting. And I must confess I've not followed his advice all that well really, because I do paint views and popular views, and you know, people like them, and so it encourages you to do it more, of course. But it's always there at the back of my mind that I always want to sort of try and get something more original than personal to what I like, you know, and make the view I'm looking at my own, you know, even if it's somewhere that somebody else has painted a lot, there's always going to be something about it that you like yourself, and you can sort of go for that and emphasise it maybe, and use your artistic licence to sort of bring it out and do what Norman asked us to do, you know. But he was there's lots of things he used to say that when I'm working will flip back into my head, you know. Incredible really.
Did he do quite a lot of work with you with colour mixing and painting?
Well, not so much in the rudimentary things, because he just used to think that we could use our own intelligence or whatever it takes to mix the colour that we were seeing, and that way we would get our own stamp on it, and not say mix blue with yellow to make green. I know that's what you do, but there are ways of adding other colours and little bits of this, that and the other, and then using the water that you've used to sort of blend it all together so that it's harmonious. And it's things like that that I think make good art, you know, and more particular to the artist who's painted it. You know, you can identify and say, you know, if you look at somebody's painting, you know whose it is, if it's a good one, don't you, usually?
Yeah.
So that's what he wasn't in for all that sort of recipe stuff, like when you bake a cake, you put so many ounces of flour and that. No, not like that. You know, intuitive stuff he was into, very much so, I would say.
Yeah. Do you think that the island has a particular, with the light and that there is a particular palette that you would say was the Manx colouring for painting?
Yes, definitely. I think it's very geared towards watercolour painting. Whether it's because of the sea being all around it, and obviously there's lots of moisture in the air and you get this sort of veil over things. You know, you can wake up one day and it'll be a pinky mauvey day, or it can be a greeny grey day, or it can be a really golden day, you know, and you do get these sort of feelings about the light, definitely. And I think the Isle of Man is very sympathetic to watercolours, very, because of the subtlety, you know, in the light.
Yeah. I've noticed at the gallery that there is a definite, colour scheme goes through Manx art. Do you think you've lifted things from like Knox and those influences?
Yes, I think it's inevitable that you would.
Yeah.
Because I think Knox, in his watercolours, he just says the Isle of Man, doesn't it? And then of course Norman says it in a slightly stronger way, maybe, in his compositions. Are very strong and individual to him, you know. Yeah, but very Manx as well, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I believe Knox has been quite a big influence. Did you?
Yes,
feel
definitely.
Like,
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. You look at at Knox and you think it's so simple, really. Why can't I do that? And you know, try and cut out the fiddly detail and keep it simple. But it's not easy, you know. And he was he.
Yeah.
You know, and Norman was Norman, and that's the way it is.
Did Norman ever bring the influence of Knox into the classroom? Did he ever?
Yes, definitely he did.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember one point he brought a whole collection of paintings in that he'd borrowed from somebody. Possibly it was the museum, I can't remember. But he showed the class a lot of them and gave a lovely lecture about Knox and how he would arrive at this sort of thinking. And he would say, I remember one instance he talked about the way that Knox would have a vast amount of space and plainness in the painting, and then there would be a small amount of detail in one area, and he said, Norman said, that it reminded him of the Celtic designs he did for Liberties. You know how you'd get a long sweeping strap of a design like that, and then it would end up in a knot of Celtic knotwork, you know, and he said that reminded him of Manx landscape in a way, and he wondered whether it was an idle thought or whether it was a serious one, I don't know, but it seems to make sense to me that it was influenced by the Manx landscape, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you think, you're saying Norman's ideas come into your head while you're painting. You've got those influences of Knox as well coming in, have you, while you're painting? All these influences.
Yes, well, you know, I don't know whether it works and
consciously.
comes out onto the paper that people can say, oh, I know where she got that idea from, because, you know, I can't seem to do it. I can't get them to look like I want. I'm always dissatisfied at the end of a painting because I think it's fallen short of what I originally wanted, you know. So that's, I think, it's kept me going, really.
Can you remember when you had your first sale, when you first sold your first painting?
Yes, that was with the Isle of Man Art Society exhibition at Easter, when they used to show work down at the sea terminal, and I sold a painting there, and I remember it was just amazing, you know. Yeah. And it doesn't go away, that feeling, you know. You think in this day and age when money is a bit tight, you know, that people fork out vast amounts for a watercolour. It's just amazing, really.
Yeah, you've had amazing success with a lot of your exhibitions.
I have, yes. I've been very lucky that people like what I do, you know. It's amazing, really. I'll never get over it.
I mean, you're very, very popular, obviously, down at the galleries where I've worked. And one of the main things that they like about you is that you do have this delicate touch that is, you know, is reminiscent of Knox and Norman. That comment comes out a lot.
Does it?
It does, yes, a lot when people are viewing your work. Where do you think you'll be going from now? Is there anything you still want to work at? You said you're still looking for that angle. Is it?
Yes, I'd like to move onwards, really, and get better, and maybe make things a little bit less obvious what I'm painting. I like the idea. There's an artist painting at the moment called Judy Collins, who's down in the gallery, and you have to look at them and you think, is that so and so or isn't it? And I like that sort of mystery about them, you know, and I'd like to paint more like that, really. I think that's why I like doing moonlight paintings, because a lot of the subject is hidden in darkness, and I like to just pick out certain bits that are clear about where it is or what it is that's there, you know, but not everywhere, and sometimes I think they're a bit too clear about where they are and what's being painted, and I'd like to just move into obscurity with it, you know, and make them a little bit more mysterious.
Yeah. How does your day work when you're painting? Are you disciplined with your painting, or is it when and can, or?
It's when I feel like it, really, and then when I can feel that I've got a few ideas together, maybe that would make 3 or 4 paintings. I sort of get the housework organised, get things out of the way, and get some food put away in the freezer so we've got something to eat in between.
Do you tend to get sort of focused just on the painting, and then everything else goes to the side while you're doing it?
So that it's easy to run the house and paint at the same time. And because I paint here at the table, I've just got to shift things over there until we eat our lunch, you know. Maybe we go in the other room and eat. But yeah, it's a sort of, I seem to work in bursts of about a week or 2 weeks at a time, and then have a rest, you know. I get a bit tired then, and then you need to formulate more ideas and wait for, it's not even a conscious effort to formulate ideas. I've got to wait for them to come, you know.
Yes, I noticed you've got all your palette out and everything. During that 2 weeks, you like to leave it set up as it is.
Yes.
Would that be your preference, rather?
Well, it's not really a preference. Sometimes they dry out, and it being watercolour and the cottage is quite warm, they dry out, you see, and I have to put them in the sink and soak them out and clean them all out and start again, because they're just not fluid enough, you know. But for small areas, I can use them as they are, you know. You can wet them and leave them for a couple of minutes and they'll soften up enough. But if you need big washes, you know, if you want a really big wash, I've got to get some separate bowls out and mix them all and have a lot of it, so that you don't use it up and then you've got half a painting left white, you know, and you still want more of that colour, you know. That's just fatal.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. So working in these big chunks of time,
yes,
you find really
you need a lot at once.
Yes.
And you know, throw a lot away is better than running out.
Yeah. Well, when you first started, was it working around the household and working?
Yeah, always has been.
Yeah.
Yeah, always has been, having husband, family, you know, and things to do. It's always been a case of fitting things in, and maybe it's all been diluted with domestic things, I don't know.
Have you ever thought about having a studio, an actually dedicated studio, or are you quite happy? You've never really found it
Yes,
problem?
I'm quite happy actually, because I think it's good to do a little patch of work, maybe, come to the end of a wash, let it dry and have a think. So I can go and do something, you see, and your mind doesn't have to be sort of focused on doing a lunch or peeling some potatoes or anything.
Mm-hmm.
You can keep your mind on what's going on here and see how it's doing, see is it drying all right, and I've enjoyed doing that really.
Mm-hmm.
I think some people would have found it a nuisance, but I knew there was no other way to do it, so I think you just adapt, don't you, to what you can.
So you're able to block out the jobs to do while you're painting, and then you're able to do that.
Yes.
Yeah, some people can't, can they?
No.
It distracts them too much to know that the washing machine's just finished and it's emptying and stuff like that.
Well, if it does, it's finished, it's finished. But I just leave it till I've got a space, you see, and then that's another job I can do, go and hang it out or whatever I do with it. And then maybe I get carried away a bit and David will come downstairs and say, "Are we having any lunch today?"
He gets
hungry.
You got sidetracked. Do you think the weather's affected you at all? Is the light in the cottage, or is there natural light?
I'm quite lucky here. It's not bad, and I've got a couple of daylight bulbs up there, which I can put on if it's a very dark day, and if it's a very detailed piece of work, I need them on. Mm-hmm. But for normal work, no, it's okay. It's okay. So David's is bad upstairs. It's not good.
No. Is your resource you're painting from now? Is that being painted from a photograph or an image on the computer?
No,
how is that?
I actually went up the road and did that, but it's in its very early stages. It's just a sketch really.
So do you sketch out or do you paint out as well? Do you do
sometimes do a little bit of the painting outside, but it would be no good going back up the road to finish that, because I don't know, it may not even come off at all. It's just, I don't know, I'd have to think about it, and maybe...
Do you think you're doing the colours then from memory and a feeling of the landscape as opposed to a direct copy from a photograph?
Well, that's as near enough to reality on the day I went up there.
Yeah.
But quite often it can reach that stage and I'm not happy with it at all. So I might sort of turn it into a moonlight painting and put some sheep in it and a moon, and make it a sort of picture rather than a view of what was actually there. Mm-hmm. It's all about picture making really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And making it a good image, and that's what I suppose I'll strive to do with it, but it doesn't always come off.
No. Really interesting. Have you found any limitations of being on the Isle of Man?
No, I haven't. No, because there's so much variety, isn't there? Mm-hmm. It's hilly. These vast plain areas like that you get around Sulby and the mountain said Snaefell area, as we were talking about before, and the clouds that tie in with it all, like an ox painting. Get that sort of image. Then the glens, and then the coast, and the sea, and the rocks, and we're very lucky, really. Such variety, isn't there?
There is. You've never had the urge to go to England or try England or do?
Well, we do.
Lakes.
We go to the Lake District a lot, and we've been to Venice a lot. Yeah. We've been to Switzerland a few times and painted there, which was wonderful, really exciting. Venice was difficult. Totally different because it's architecture, and your drawing has to be spot on.
And the light is completely different, obviously, and the colour palette, yeah,
completely different. But it's a challenge, I think it's very good for us.
Mm-hmm. They've been very successful, your Venice pictures as well, haven't they? So
the very fact that it is close in nature to the Isle of Man, both Ireland and the Lake District, makes it that bit more difficult because you've got to make it look as if it's that place and not the Isle of Man, which is not easy, you know, when it's such a subtle difference. Because Southwest Island, where we used to like going a lot, is very dramatic and colourful, and yet it's got a lot of similarities to the island. And of course the Lake District is much more craggy, and the stone walls and the little villages is really a favourite place. We love it there, love it. So maybe the Lake District, it's easier to get it to look like the Lake District, not here, because you know the difference is a bit more marked.
Yeah. Have you had success in England selling paintings?
No, I haven't sold any across.
No.
I've never taken any work across really, to sell in galleries over there, mainly because the Lake District is just crammed with artists, and you think you just get lost in the, you know.
I think it might be as well you sell everything here. You don't seem to have many spare ones.
Well, I don't know. I've got a big folder upstairs of holiday paintings, you know, that I think I must write a little note on the outside and say, these are for Lynn, that's my daughter, when I go.
Yeah, you've sold some Venice ones. So those are
yes,
and some of the lakes. I think you've sold the odd one, haven't you?
I don't remember the
I
lakes.
remember seeing some in the exhibition. I remember,
right.
and maybe one or two that you've tried.
Yeah.
But I do know myself, obviously from the gallery, that the Isle of Man is the only place people seem to want to buy.
Yes.
On the island.
Yes, they're a bit insular, really, aren't they?
Yeah, and even the visitors, that's what they want to take home as well.
Yes, they do.
Isn't it?
It's like a souvenir, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've never found that limited. There's always lots of areas around the island. Is there,
Yes, well, you know, as I say as well, you can look out of the window every morning and it's different because of the light, isn't it? And, you know, you go over the hill into Portsmouth, along the shore into Castletown, and it's different every time, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, coming down to Portsmouth, you'll realise that. You know, you coming down Fisher's Hill and you see it every time, it's different. So it doesn't matter that you're painting the same subject, because you strive to, you know, capture something of what's there without it being pedantic, you know.
Do you ever work with David, your husband? David?
No, we don't.
You never paint together?
We did do when we first got together, but we found it difficult really, because I think we were being a bit too polite really, because one of us would say, oh, I'd like to stop here. We might be out in the car and one of us would say, oh, I'd like to stop here and do this, it's nice. So the other one would agree. Because we were quite, you know. Yeah. But then, as you go along, you realise that you have to stand on your own and do what you want to do, otherwise it's no good trying to please people, really.
No.
It isn't, you know. So we go out separately to paint.
Has he been an influence on you, would you say?
Oh
David's
yes,
work?
he's been a great help, yes, he has, because he says I have to him, but I don't really think it's as much as the other way around. Sometimes we both get stuck with something and you think there's something not quite right, it's not going well, and there's something wrong, and you've maybe spent too much time looking at it. And David will come down for a coffee maybe, and he'll say, how's it going? I say, oh, you know, I don't know. So he'll have a look, you see, and he'll say, do you think you could do with subduing that part and bringing this up, or that's a bit too jumpy? It wants softening off and it's jumping forward too much, or it's doing this and it's, you know, and the same applies when I go up there and he'll say there's something, and I'll say, well, what's that funny shape meant to be there? And he'll say, well, it's so and so, and you see, it's obvious to him because it's in his head, you know, and yet to me it looks like an awkward shape. And so he'll say, I'll see what you mean, I can sort of make it more, explain it better, you know.
So would you say it's been a really important part of your growth is having someone's opinion that you respect?
I would say so, Anita, yes, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. And can you see any time where you've both worked on the same painting? Or the same, you said the same view. Have you done the same view and come up with pretty much the same ever, or has it always had your own stamp on it?
No, when at the first, as I said, when we used to go out together, they were always different what we came up with. Yeah, which is good, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and it would appear like you're both in different places.
Yes.
But yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Do you feel, have you ever been influenced by, apart from Norman and anyone else's opinions when you've been in working? Have you worked in the public eye at all? Have you ever done a residency or anything like that?
Never.
Public?
No. The only other teacher I went to was, of course, George Crellin, who I used to enjoy doing portrait painting quite a lot, and he was just amazing because he was. Have you seen any of his work?
No, I haven't. No.
You haven't. No. Well, you see, he wasn't. He was a very quiet person. Very reticent about his work, and he was an orphan, brought up in a children's home, and had a very low opinion of himself. But painting, wonderful. And Norman thought a lot about him as an artist as well as a person, and he was a good teacher in his own way. Not the same as Norman, not as strong, and he didn't lecture, but he would go around and help you, and it was really good, really good. Yeah, so he was a help in that sort of part of the art I'd like to do, he was very good.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed, Nancy. That was lovely.